Bruce Pearl is currently locked in a battle with Miami, Ohio, and considering his history against plucky mid-majors in the NCAA tournament, I don't think he's going to win this one.
Welcome in to Locked On College Basketball Squad Show, your go-to spot for everything happening on the hardwood, from blue blood battles to bracket busters and everything in between. Join the squad of hoops junkies as we break down the biggest stories with the boldest takes and unfiltered opinions. Because here, we don't hold back. It's the College Basketball Squad Show on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What is up, folks? Happy March and welcome into the Locked On College Basketball Squad Show. I am your host, Andy Patton, joined today by a handful of fantastic Locked On College guests, including my co-host on Locked On College Basketball, Isaac Shade.
Decent at best. I'm decent at best.
We also have Locked On Blue Devils host JJ Jackson, Locked On Wildcats host Leaf Tulane, and Locked On Cougs host Parker Ainsworth. A lot of fun conversation we're going to get to today. Again, all part of the Locked On Podcast Network. As a reminder, now the #1 sports podcasting network. And folks, we want to thank all of you for making this show your first listen or watch of the day. All right, we are eventually going to get to the two #1 teams in the country, the two top teams in the country demolishing their opponents on Big Monday. We got the host for both Arizona and Duke here to talk about those wins over Iowa State and NC State, respectively. But first, we are going to talk about another battle that happened. Bruce Pearl getting into it with the athletic director for Miami, Ohio, talking about NCAA tournament resumes. And this Miami, Ohio conversation has been happening for the last couple of weeks as this team continues to win and win and win. And this kind of crazy confluence of factors of having a pretty weak resume, but yet no losses on the season. What does that mean as we get closer to Selection Sunday? We're going to break that down, talk about the future of mid-major Cinderellas as we see less and less of them seeming to crop up. Last year was a really chalky bracket. I know there's some fear that that might keep happening in the transfer portal and NIL era. So we're going to get into that as well today. But we want to start again. If you missed this, Bruce Pearl, during one of his halftime of one of the games that he covered over the weekend on his CBS show, made comments about Miami, Ohio's resume. And basically, I'm going to read what he said here. He said, quote, "If we're selecting the 68 best teams, then Miami, Ohio is going to have to win their tournament to qualify as a champion because as an at-large, they are not one of the best teams in the country. And that's going to be a difficult choice for the committee to make." And I want to get into some comparisons because Bruce Pearl, I think, has an agenda here, even though he is no longer the current coach at Auburn. Auburn being a bubble team is certainly part of his reasoning for maybe advocating for teams that maybe have more of a tough schedule, but not as many great wins. So we're going to kind of look at that. But what do you guys make of Miami, Ohio at this point with the resume that, yeah, doesn't look great, but they don't have any losses? It's impossible to ignore a team without any losses.
Andy, I feel like first you opened up the Bruce Pearl door. Can we hear the response first from the Miami, Ohio AD? I've got the quote ready to put on screen.
I have it up here too. Yeah.
Okay. Hit it.
Okay, absolutely. You are flat out wrong about Miami, Ohio when you say we would finish last in the Big East, which was another part of Pearl's quote. The disrespect is awful, and you should not be near a TV studio covering this sport when you show your true colors. Even slipped in a "we" when talking about Auburn. Nice work, which I love. I love that dig. This is from the athletic director, David Saylor at Miami, Ohio. And yeah, Bruce Pearl did. He said "we" when talking about Auburn. It's maybe a slip of the tongue, but certainly not exactly a coincidence as part of this conversation.
Well, I don't mean to jump in because Houston obviously was in a group of 5 conference for a long time. Andy would speak to that from the Gonzaga point of view as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say this feels like an extreme version of conversation we have every year, right? There's always some, smaller conference or mid-major team that has some outstanding resume, relatively speaking, right? And then there's always some blowhards that maybe aren't as blunt about their Auburn connections or whatever,
Right.
or maybe it's not as obvious, but say, well, like, oh, but like, this 500 Pitt team is great. It's just like they always grind that out with something. It's like, okay, but like, you play who you play. These kids tend to play, and like they're playing phenomenal basketball right now. And like part of this is about winning close games. And Andy, I actually did want to throw it back to you on the Gonzaga angle. I know you're hosting this as Lost on College Basketball, so it's an awkward spot a little bit. But like, I will never not connect Houston's run last year to winning at UCF at the buzzer on a last second shot, right?
Mhm.
Like winning close games makes you better. I don't
Mhm.
really care who the opponent is, right? And at some point, like Miami's just done that enough times that it needs to count for something. And Auburn being on the bubble at the last 4 out with Bruce Pearl's son, notably getting the job after it was, the only option available in November. Like those things all seem to matter a little bit in this too, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I think for like on the Gonzaga side and on the mid-major side, I mean, you said you play who you play, and I think that is part of the conversation. And as part of the conversation, we'll have talking about mid-majors collectively in the NCAA tournament. But like it feels a little exclusionary to say, well, you didn't play a good enough schedule, so we're not going to let you into the tournament, or we don't think you're good enough unless you win every single game. But then on the same coin, not be willing to play those teams. And I think that's the part of the conversation that frustrates me to no end of like, look at the schedules of many like of these mediocre Big 12 teams that kind of float around the bubble every year, like the TCUs and so on. And they usually have non-conference strength of schedules in like the 340s, the 350s, like some of the worst non-con schedules. And if you're a mid-major team in KenPom from between like 100 and 175, like you're going to really struggle to schedule those games. And again, I speak this from experience as somebody who's covered the West Coast Conference, because that's where San Francisco resides. That's where Santa Clara typically resides, and LMU and teams like that. And they really struggle to schedule those games because the power comp, like what do you gain as a power? Like what did Xavier gain when they brought Santa Clara to their house and Santa Clara beat the absolute crap out of them? And we know that Xavier's not very good, but like if Xavier had a good year after that, like that loss would have been devastating and that win wouldn't have mattered. So like there's just the risk reward is not there. And so these, teams like Auburn, like and I'm not going to credit Auburn has a really strong non-conference strength of schedule. It is not exactly the same. Theirs is very, very good, and they do deserve credit for that. But they're not scheduling these types of mid-major teams very often, and I think that's part of the problem here.
Yeah, because in this day and age where it's all, the team sheets of we've got the 3 predictive metrics and we've got the 3 results-based metrics, everybody wants the high major teams want to play the top of the heap and the bottom of the heap. Literally every time I'm preparing for, like I just prepped, Carolina's playing Clemson tonight. And so I always go through everybody's schedules and look at it. And every non-conference schedule is 5 or 6 high majors and then a whole bunch of teams in the 200s and 300s, right? Like that's what it is. So you can run up the score, get your margin of victory stuff up, because that kind of crap matters in the net. And so I don't know if that's something that needs fixing, but boy, Ed, that's a weird scheduling thing.
So I've got a little bit of an alternate perspective here. Like if you were to look at Miami of Ohio and they lose one, should they be in? I'd still lean yes. But obviously the math is
what is it that they lose, Leaf, in that scenario? Are you saying if they lose in the tournament final, in the regular season, where is that loss coming? Because I think that matters too.
I think that does. I was just thinking like the narrative is like if they don't go undefeated, if the loss comes in the tournament, because if they get 2 losses, if they lose one there and then another one, then it becomes really tenuous. So let's just say it's in the tournament, whether it's semi or final. And I think they should still probably be in. But if you do the math, it becomes a pretty precarious perch. And it's like everyone acts like it's outrageous that the Bruce Pearls take, aside from the Auburn bias. But if you were just to look at it mathematically, there's a lot of automatic bids. And then you take all the teams that are locks. And of course, like all our teams in here and many others in the high majors are in there. There's probably only 4 or 5 teams that really have an argument and their arguments are probably better than Miami of Ohio's, because they're in a pretty poor version of the MAC. Like if you were to look at the teams that are in there this year, far worse than other years, and they've played a lot of close games. So I think if you were to look at Ohio State, this would be really funny. If Ohio State played Miami of Ohio in Dayton, I think Ohio State's got to be favored. And if you look, and that's like a very firm bubble team in Ohio State, because they only recently picked up their first 2 quad 1 wins. And they just have the benefit of the doubt. They play a quad 1 every week. Miami of Ohio has the issue of that they don't get to play high majors because teams don't want to play them because they're good enough to knock them off, like Andy was talking about with the Santa Clara playing Xavier type of thing. But if you're to look at just like who's a better basketball team, you're probably going to take the other guys. And so I think there's something to be said for the number of teams mathematically that are better being a strength of Bruce Pearl's argument. I just think there's the taintedness of the argument is the issue.
Yes, we've got the visuals here for people where there's no quad 1 games right now for Miami of Ohio, just one quad 2, and then the rest are quad 3 and quad 4. Looking at that, it is a little concerning, but when you look at the screen as well, I see only W's. Like there are no L's that come up here for Miami of Ohio. I also wanted to note in this kind of back and forth between Bruce Pearl and the Miami of Ohio AD, Bruce Pearl is 65 years old. This other AD is 56. He's spelling U with just like the single letter U. The grammar was just just the optics. If we were just trying to explain this to non-college basketball people, like what are these two old men arguing about online? And I had to sit back and think about that for a second.
You know what I think is funny about that, JJ? This was my response to that on Twitter. Like, I think it's actually good for college. Like, characters are good for college basketball. Like, Will Wade is good for college basketball. Sure. The John Calipari, Todd Golden thing Saturday was great when they're getting the double P's, right? So from that perspective, I'm like, y'all keep going back and forth right here because it's bringing eyeball. Like that kind of like, I wouldn't be shocked if that shows up on PTI or around the horn or whatever it is tomorrow, first hour, first watch. I can't think of what it's called, the Stephen A. Smith thing, right? Like it's going to pop on there. And so from that aspect, I'm like, give me all your single U's. I'm here for it.
So two thoughts. One, and I kind of want to build on something Leaf just said actually for the first one of this. We're looking at it right now. No games in the quad 1, one quad 2 win, a bunch of quad 3 and 4 as JJ mentioned, it's all W's. If there was a single 6-point loss to Ohio State in Dayton in the quad 1 area, and the exact same thing was everywhere else, and they then lost in the conference championship of their tournament, right? Like they take 2 losses, conference championship and 1 quad 1 loss because one daring soul decided to schedule them and they lost by 6 points. Are we going to ding them because they if they actually got the game, played a hell of a game and lost by 6, like they could have the exact same team. And frankly, like that loss by 6 could also happen on the round of 32 because and chaos happens in March. I mean, like that's just part of the deal too. It's not like the best team wins every March Madness. It's part of the insanity of the whole thing, right? Like it just doesn't feel like. I mean, say they took 1 quad 1 loss because one team plays them. I still think they look at this resume as okay, but they won 35 games. Like it's going to be crazy to say a 35 win. Like that's just too many wins.
It would be ridiculous to punish them for that if you're also going to punish them for not playing that game. And I think that's the point you're making, Parker. And I would agree with you there. And to your other point too of like this. The best team doesn't always win. Like I think there is like do I think that on a neutral, the majority, 10 times out of 10, if you played 10 games with Miami of Ohio playing other bubble teams like Ohio State or Indiana or whomever, do I think that the power conference team would win more than 5 times? Probably, but I'm here if that happens, great. But I'm here for that 2 or 3 out of 10 times where they don't, and where this Miami Ohio team that is a unique team with a highly efficient offense, like where they do pull off that win, because I do think that could happen. And to the point here, and to continue to pick on Bruce Pearl a little bit because that's kind of the theme. Yale was 90th in the net in 2024, and that would have been last in the Big East, which was another part of his talking point. He said, "Oh, that team wouldn't have belonged in." Yale beat Auburn in that game. It was a 4-13 matchup, and Yale won that game. And that same year, you ACC guys might remember that pretty egregiously not fun to watch and bad Virginia team got a play-in opportunity because they had enough quality losses on their resume, and then they got their bell rung badly by Colorado State, where they scored like 42 points in the whole game or something. I would have rather seen whether I don't remember what Drake or Indiana State or whatever, sure. UC Irvine, whatever mid-major team got left out that year. I would have rather seen that. They might have gotten smoked by Colorado State too. Who knows? But we didn't get that opportunity to see that. I think getting those chances is what is more fun about the sport in general. And for a Miami Ohio team, I mean, I think collectively, like what is the point of the regular season if a team that loses 1 or 2 games doesn't get in? Like, what are we, like 275 of the teams in this sport basically don't matter until they get to the conference tournament, if you're saying that a 1 or 2 loss team isn't good enough to make it. And that just feels kind of ridiculous to me.
And they don't matter in a sense of like, we're trying to figure out the best team, but I don't mean to spoil this too. I know Houston lost in the championship game last year. So maybe that is like shaping but like, I don't mean to sound like the guy bitter about that. I don't know that the best team always wins March Madness anyway. If you're trying to figure out a way to figure out the best team, it would not be a bunch of 68 team bracket random 1 game samples. That's just not how that goes. Like JJ, I'm sure you're going to disagree about this, but if Houston and Duke from last year's Final Four played 10 times, do we think the same outcome happens all 10 times? No. Like that's just not how we figured out champions for the entirety of the sport. That's never been how this is about. It's about finding ways to teams who deserve to be in. It's hard to argue you don't deserve to be in if you win every game in front of you or 99% of them.
Isaac, if Gonzaga and North Carolina from 2017 played 9 other times, Gonzaga would win all 9 of them. I'm going to tell you that right now.
No, well, it all depends on if Shemek Karnowski can see or not.
If he doesn't get poked in the eye.
But yeah, I mean, gosh, so many of these would be such great series, right? Like all due respect to Florida winning the championship last year, give me that Duke Houston that Parker was just talking about in a 7-game series, man. I would, oh my gosh, I would sign up for that every day of the week. Or,
as long as Sion James knows how to inbound a basketball.
I got Florida last year. Yeah. Florida was still going to take it.
Or this year, like give me Leafs Arizona team and JJ's Duke team 7 games. I mean, my goodness, that's electric. But can I just bottom line this, because we probably got to keep moving?
Yep.
Good news is that Miami just don't lose a game, and everything we just said is moot, right? Like, you can't take it away from them if they don't lose. They got 2 more regular season games, and then the MAC tournament, they just have to win 3, and then it's done. So come on, man. I loved the fight to win last Friday, to come back and get that one done against Western Michigan. I just hope they can do it so we don't have to sit and sweat for them.
My favorite outcome of this year is that Miami, Ohio wins every game going forward, but by like 1 point, and they're down in the second half of every game just because it'll make people's brains explode. And that's what we're here for. It's March, it's madness. That's what we want to see. But folks, Miami, Ohio is not the only potential Cinderella that we might see this March, although it does kind of seem to be a bit of a dying breed. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that and the future of these Cinderella runs coming up here in just a second. But first, folks, what if sports were traded like markets? Now you can put your sports IQ to work in real time with Robinhood prediction markets. It's not you against the house, it's you participating in a live market. You can buy or sell your positions live all game long. Use your sports knowledge in the moments that matter. Robinhood prediction markets changes the game. It's people moving the action, so when momentum shifts, you can move with it. I always knew the game, but never had a dynamic way to apply that knowledge. And now I can actually take part live in a market powered by the people. You're no longer just a spectator. Play by play, you decide. Trade every play with Robinhood, now available across the US. Download the Robinhood app now to begin. Futures and cleared swaps trading involves significant risk and is not appropriate for everyone. Event contracts are offered by Robinhood Derivatives LLC, a registered futures commission merchant and swap firm. All right, folks, I want to thank all of you for making Locked On College Basketball Squad Show your first listener watch of the day, and for helping to make Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. Well, we're going to continue the conversation here, not specifically on Miami, Ohio, but looking kind of at part of what we talked about in that first segment of these power conference teams not being as willing to play mid-majors, and the fact that we're seeing less upsets. And last year was one of the chalkiest brackets we have seen in the NCAA tournament in a while. And considering the rapid amount of changes that we have seen in this sport in the NIL and transfer portal era, it kind of caused some consternation for people who were like, oh, like, is this going to continue to be the case? Like, we love to see, and Isaac and I talk about this a lot on Locked On College Basketball, you like to see the upsets early, but you're probably going to see chalk late. But last year, there just wasn't a lot of upsets, even in the early rounds. It just kind of was, I think Colorado State made a little run. Arkansas, which just doesn't really feel like much of a Cinderella. I don't think John Calipari and that Razorbacks team really fits into that mold. But it kind of does feel like in this era where mid-major rosters are turning over so frantically because of the transfer portal and the NIL and the ability to make more money other places that we are starting to feels like we might see less of this going forward. What do you guys think on that?
I think it's a fair observation with what we saw last year. And I do think that I'm with you, Andy. I wish it could be the upsets early, but then chalk a little bit later so that we can kind of play out those theoretical 7-game series in our heads with the best teams and the matchups at the very end. But the reason we love this sport so much and the tournament so much is because of those big bracket busting upsets that take place early on. And so it's awesome to be able to kind of root for these Cinderella runs that schools go on and to remember, oh, he was the coach of this school and they made that big run, and all these years later, now look at this individual leading this big time program and that sort of thing. And then guys that could turn big, crazy Cinderella runs into NBA careers and all the things that kind of run with it.
I love that, JJ. It's always so fun that's the favorite one for me, is to look back at teams that made a crazy run. And it was like, oh yeah, Dwayne Wade. Okay, great. Checks out. Got it.
Right.
CJ McCollum played at Lehigh, right? Like that, like those.
Oh, sorry, JJ. Yeah, he didn't mean to bring that up.
I do think though it's interesting because like another big part of that too is that like day job, I coach high school basketball, so maybe this is also part of that. High school basketball has become so professional that those like the diamonds and the roughs aren't. They're not anything up at Lehigh anymore, right? Like, I don't mean to keep dwelling on that one. Like, we're seeing EYBL scholastics and like it also feels like you're seeing less and less of like the one and done guys at those programs. And then on top of that, you have that if they're if they're 2 and done or 3 and done, then they're transferring after the one anyway. So like, it's a combination of things to me. It's not just transfers. It's also like there are less unknown names.
But I think like I saw a post recently about a freshman at Santa Clara. His name's Alan Graves, 6'9" big man, really, really good player, coming off the bench for them, 22 minutes a game, but he's super efficient. And some draft people are kind of starting to crop his name up a little bit and talk about him as a potential one and done out of Santa Clara. But I've seen scouts who've posted on social media like, oh, the feedback is that he should like transfer to a power conference school, ball out as a sophomore, and then enter the draft after that. And I'm like, if we're considering Santa Clara as not being a school where you can compete to make the NBA when one of the 25 best players in the NBA and Jalen Williams went to Santa Clara, he didn't go anywhere else. He went to Santa Clara. And Brandon Pajemski, he started at Illinois, transferred to Santa Clara. He's a good NBA player with Golden State. Like, if Santa Clara is not a school that people are believing can turn out NBA talent, or that you have to go to a power conference school from there, then it just, if that's the feedback these kids are getting, then yeah, you're never going to see talent. You're not going to see a CJ McCollum, like you said. You're not going to see those guys to turn it onto a Gonzaga example, like a Ron Baker or Clay Anthony early from that Wichita State team that took him down. Like, you're not going to see those players at those schools anymore. And I mean, and that kills it. That kills those teams being able to make, I mean, like Herb Sendek can continue to recruit exceptionally well, find kids that are, the best versions of diamonds in the rough that there are. But if the feedback that they're getting is to leave, then I don't see how that program can sustain and build a consistent program that can really be, kind of the dynasty of sorts, or a team that consistently gets in the NCAA tournament.
And I think the flip side of it is that the big dogs out here that are like kind of running the chalk are able to fill their roster in a way that leaves them so like lacking vulnerability. So like an example I've given about this topic before is Auburn, for instance, wouldn't be considered the biggest, NIL school in the world. And they had Janai Broom, who was from a mid-major, so that supplements your point. But then they had their bench was, Tahad Pettiford, 5-star. Then they brought in Chaney Johnson from the D2 ranks, but the guy could have started pretty much anywhere in the country. And then they just continued to build their roster out. And then, of course, there's the Dukes and the Houstons. And Houston, they recently said, or Kelvin said, oh, we got a poor front office, or, and front office is the wrong word, but it's the word I'm intentionally using to talk about what college basketball is right now. And it's basically like, yeah, they had Javier Francis, who would have started on a lot of teams, and he's humongous. So all these teams have like 8 starters now. Arizona, like they have this talk about every time Franford Chilla has a game right now, it's, oh yeah, they have 8 starters. Like Dwayne Aristotle, by many before the season, who was Arizona's 8th man, was projected to be a first-round pick. So if you look at the rosters, because of NIL, the best teams in the country can swoop up 8 guys to be basically starters, and they can be compensated as such. And therefore, it's really hard to upset these teams because, one injury doesn't derail a season. One, weakness can be supplemented by saying, okay, like, yeah, our 9th guy can shoot 50% from 3. So I just think that the NIL team's too strong to be upsettable. And I wish it weren't the case.
I also don't know this was intended of being a conversation about roster construction and how that negates a Davis Cinderella, but I do think the other piece that Leaf is that like incentive to choose a school, like there's a reason to be the 7th or 8th man at a school that will pay you a lot of money to be the 7th or 8th man, as opposed to being the man at Lehigh, right? Like, we're going to keep using that as the example, like,
or Kansas State. Hello.
Right. Exactly. Like it makes a lot of sense to go be, to take the large check, go be the 7th man, win a ring, wait your turn, so to speak, if you're a young guy, or make your only big payday if you're a European pro, right? Like, it makes more sense to do that than to go be the man at George Mason, because there's other incentives involved now too. There's probably more to this than just roster construction, but that it does seem to be a big part of it. But also we are seeing, I mean, you're not going to see on John Shire's bench 12, 13, 14 aren't going to be 5 stars like they once would have been. Those guys are going to go somewhere else where they can play and get a, maybe a commensurate payday, but with bigger PT. So I think like there is some balance of talent spread around the nation that needs to be considered. Also, while I've got the floor, Andy, just going back to your setup of how chalky last year was, you all, for those who don't know me, I'm a nerd and I love the numbers. So one of my spreadsheets I keep is the seed aggregate of every round of every NCAA tournament, just basically adding up all the seeds that remain in a given round. The lower the number, the chalkier it is, basically. So last year's round of 32 was the 5th chalkiest ever. And we're talking in the 64 team era. So going back to 85, the Sweet 16, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th chalkiest. Elite 8 tied for the chalkiest, seed aggregate of 13. Obviously Final Four was tied with 2008 for a 4 seed aggregate. And then the national championship, the same thing. So, I mean, so chalky across the board. Here's the thing for me. Last year at this point was still the outlier, right? Prior to last year, it had still always been Cinderella lives, but as Andy said earlier, upsets early, chalk late. I am not willing to give in to Cinderella's dead until we've seen it 2 more years in a row. If we get to the 27 tournament Final Four and it's like, good grief, it's been 3 straight years of this, then I'm sold on it. But even if it's this year, it's still an outlier in my opinion.
Shady, someone's going to sleep better tonight knowing that you're the seed aggregate guy to turn to in the college basketball world. Somebody's watching or listening to this, and they're like, I've always wanted someone to total up the seeds of the NCAA tournament matchup. Can you imagine
if someone was like, hey, I got a seed aggregate guy, and he's Shady.
So Shady, I feel like the thought I was at was like, wait a second, can we talk about like getting a sunflower seed sponsorship? Like, how do we roll someone in here? Like, don't show the brand. Don't show the brand. Right. We are not for free here. I want to ask though, Isaac, a question, because obviously last year the aggregate, or sitting with your numbers, was 4 in the final. Like that's as low as it can physically be.
Right.
I teach history, not math, but I think that's how that works, right? What would count at would 6 as an aggregate number not count as chalk? Like what? How low a number counts as chalk? Is a 3 seed and 3 1s?
I'm glad you asked. We got a seed aggregate guy here to help.
Yeah. So what seed aggregate?
Hang on, I got a guy. We gotta go.
Because
and it's not just the Final Four, Parker. Because I think when America looks back and judges the chalkiness of the tournament, it ain't the Final Four. I mean, it might be, but more often it's the makeup of the Sweet 16 and the round of 32. That's where everyone's looking to decide, was this chalky or not?
So like, to me, it's like, okay,
that's where I love my upsets for real. That's absolutely the first weekend.
But like last year, you had the 3 1 seed, the 4 1 seeds all make it. If you had 3 1 seeds and an 8, it still would have been a really chalky tournament. It just would have been that 1 8 seeds, the one we're talking about.
Depending on what the detritus was leading up to those 3 1 seeds, though, right? Because the 1 seeds might have knocked off a 6, 7, and 5 in the Elite Eight or something like that, and that's not as chalky.
Oh, so from a narrative perspective, you don't think the 8 seed would trump a lot of our conversations and the way we remember things and the way we talk? 'Cause I think like those tend to be so big in our minds that I think it actually kind of takes over.
I think it also depends on what the team is too. Like, frankly, there's a difference between an 8 seed being, a Santa Clara or an 8 seed being a North Carolina, for example, or like last year when Arkansas was the team that pulled off the upsets. Like, if it's a big budget, like again, as part of this conversation, when we're looking at kind of the death of Cinderellas with regards to the NIL and the transfer portal, if it's an underperforming high major, even in NC State, like in the run that they went on under Coach Keats, like that was fun because that was truly kind of a plucky, they should not be here type team. But like for the most part, I think it does depend on, are we talking about like true Cinderella stories, true Jack Bolke stories where it's a dude who you think should be working at Enterprise Rent-A-Car and he's dropping 10 threes on Kentucky? Or is it just like, oh, this, mediocre high major team beat this slightly better high major team? Like that doesn't feel as significant. And that's, to Parker's point, purely a narrative argument as opposed to like a mathematical argument.
I've got Parker's example. Like, okay, JJ, 2015 Final Four. What was the makeup? Do you remember?
Michigan State was the 7th.
Wisconsin and Kentucky.
Duke, Kentucky, Wisconsin, all 1 seeds, and a 7-seeded Michigan State.
Yep.
But I think to Andy's point, because of the brand, we're not going to remember that. But if we
did not remember that. I knew that was who they played in the Final Four. Could not have told you they were a 7 seed.
But if we rewind to say 2011,
Butler.
We all remember Butler. We all remember VCU. What about 2006? Anybody got the outlier there?
George
Mason.
Boom. Right. So I think I think Andy is spot on here. It's brand based.
You made a Final Four recently, right?
Mm-hmm.
Though it was 2023.
Butler jumper away from making it to the championship game.
It was 2023 because the other team in the final that year was San Diego State, right? It was a lot of it.
And UConn was a 4 that year too.
And
so
Miami, who should have lost to Texas in the Elite Eight, was a 5.
Well,
That's
and
right.
speaking of narratives, people think of that UConn team as being the next year's team, which was a wagon. That 2003, the 2023 UConn was not the same team.
No, because they had that January lull. Yeah,
they lost 6 out of 8 games in January, but they were 14-0 to start the year.
Oh, we lost 3 in a row a week ago for the first time. Everyone thought the sky was falling. I had to remind people of that team. I had to look that team very, very closely.
Okay, but can I say one other thing about mid-majors this year? It's funny because all the conversation has been about Miami, Ohio, because they're undefeated. Somebody push back if you want to. St. Louis is the best mid-major in the country.
Oh, for sure.
At least.
The only argument I might make is,
assuming we're not calling Gonzaga a mid-major. Hear me on that.
We're not. But St. Mary's is the only other team that I might argue.
St. Mary's versus Miami. Give me that one. Who you got?
St. Mary's versus Miami, Ohio. That would be a weird game. I don't think St. Mary's is better than St. Louis, but it's off. I would love to see him play 5 times in a row.
Yeah.
Like, that'd be fantastic. But I think it's probably an edge on St. Louis. But those are the 2 best, I think. And I think maybe 2 of the only ones that'll really make it as at-large bids. I mean, I think Santa Clara could. I think they should.
St. Louis doesn't win the A-10, and assuming St. Mary's doesn't win the West Coast.
Right, yeah. St. Mary's could absolutely win the West Coast Conference, but St. Mary's and Santa Clara are going to play each other in the semifinals, so one of those teams is not going to make the championship game. I think if Santa Clara wins that game, St. Mary's will still make it, and then I think Santa Clara will make it. So that's the way you get a 3-bid WCC, but like the Mountain West is looking pretty weak. Like, Utah State will make it. San Diego State, I think, is probably on the outside now. New Mexico, maybe. VCU's maybe an at-large team, but again, it's like kind of a perfect storm of things would have to happen. Like, there's just not a lot of them this year, and I think that's like part of the issue is like I saw somebody post on Twitter. They're like, we're not going to see that. What was it? The San Francisco when they played. What was John Morant's team? Murray State. Thank you. Like as a 7-10 game, like we're probably not going to see that anymore. And maybe this year we'll get a St. Mary's versus VCU. Like it could happen, but like I kind of love those games, and I feel like we're trending towards seeing less and less of them.
Yep. Hey, before we move on to the last segment, I got a mid-major based trivia time. In the AP poll that came out on Monday, we had both Miamis ranked. Miami, Ohio, and Florida. If you know the answer, give it a second. But I queried, I wonder when the last time this happened was. Turned out it has only happened once ever before. Does anybody know when the only other week, literally 1 week, that both Miamis were ranked in the AP poll prior to right now?
Probably with Wally Zerbiak.
It absolutely great job. It absolutely was.
I never would have thought that this happened.
Yeah. It was in the Wally Zerbiak, his senior year, when he scored like
99, 2000.
Yep. So the week was February 15th of 99. The only other week in the history of the AP poll, both Miamis have been in it. There's another nerdy drop from your shady.
Who was on the other Miami team now? Wait a second.
Good for Miami, man.
I'll give you a fun fact out of that. That's a full year before I'm born.
Oh my God.
Right,
I'm
well.
so old.
Oh,
The
man,
youngster of the group.
a killer for shade right there. Well, let's talk about now that we're switching gears very aggressively.
I was driving already.
I didn't mean it that way. It's Wally Zerbiak's the only guy that comes out of there. So I couldn't have told you the year.
The only guy. What are you talking about? One of the greatest quarterbacks in history is from Miami, Ohio.
Ben
From a basketball standpoint.
Roethlisberger, that's right.
Yeah.
Also, who was basically before Leaf was born, I would imagine too.
More or less.
Talking mid-majors for the last 35 minutes. Now we're going to switch gears really intensely to talk about the best two teams in the country because they both picked up really just ho-hum big margin victories on Big Monday, the final Big Monday of the year. Not a lot of mystery here as Duke and Arizona roll to wins. We're going to talk about that and where these teams are at heading into the final week of the season. All that coming up here in just a second. But first, folks, college basketball, it is nonstop. There's big games, there's tight spreads, there's momentum swings every single night. From those early tip-offs to the late-night West Coast shootouts, there's always action on the board. And now FanDuel is giving you a way to turn that energy into even bigger potential wins with the College Basketball Parlay Profit Boost. You can build any college hoops parlay that you want, whether it's rivalry games, ranked matchups, whatever fits your read on the games. You can also mix spreads, totals, and player props to match how you see the slate playing out. Then you can apply the profit boost and instantly bump up your potential payout. Since we've been talking Miami, Ohio, they are 8.5-point home favorites tonight, Tuesday, against Toledo. We'll see if they can keep the streak alive, get to 30-0. So, folks, you can go safe, you can go bold, you can ride with the team you've been following all season. It's your parlay, your style, now with more upside behind it. So head to FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel, play your game. Today's episode is also brought to you by Indeed. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inboxes overflowing, and the one position that you have to fill is still sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, that's a job for Sponsored Jobs. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for with the right skills, experience, and location, so you're not just hoping the right candidate will stumble across your post. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute that I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed's data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all of your boxes. There's less stress, it takes less time, and you get more results. So when you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? That's a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. All right, folks, continuing our conversation here again, switching gears off of the Cinderella mid-major Miami, Ohio talk to talk about two teams that have no mystery as to what a seed they're going to get in the NCAA tournament. Duke and Arizona rolled to victories on Big Monday. Duke on the road at NC State. NC State been struggling as of late. Only win they've picked up in the last few weeks was against North Carolina. We wondered, hey, maybe it's a short turnaround for Duke. They got a big win over Virginia. NC State's very motivated. Maybe they could make this a game. They did not. Duke rolled. Somehow, JJ, this being a 29-point win almost doesn't even feel like it encapsulates how dominant Duke was in this game. It was a little bit close for the first few minutes. Duke pulled away big to end the first half and then just absolutely cruised in the second half here. What did you see from that Blue Devils team?
a little bit of everything, man. 26 from Cam Boozer. I mean, he's fighting through all the scratches and scrapes of, I mean, the Wolfpack are you try every tactic possible to slow him down, to claw him. That's right. Dame Sarr was awesome in this game. If he continues to turn a corner, watch out, world. Isaiah Evans, 4 more 3-pointers. Duke dominant on the glass once again. I'm not even talking about Patrick Gongba. I'm not even talking about how money John Shire has been this season. I don't know if you guys saw the numbers after the Virginia game this past weekend. Did you guys see the stat about Duke's baseline out of bounds and sideline out of bounds, that their offensive efficiency is 100th percentile for both of those scenarios this season with Shire? Are you kidding me?
That's incredible.
Oh my goodness. So this and they're locked in defensively. I'm great. Vibes are great. ACC champs once again. And now let's go win the real thing. Let's beat those guys down the road on Saturday and keep.
Hey, get out of here with that. No. No, I saw somebody say after the game, just to throw this in really quick, can you imagine if this team had Cedric Coward? Oh my gosh. I think somebody said, I think the quote was, cancel the tournament now.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, JJ, that you mentioned Dame Sarr and specifically said, like, watch out, world, because what I have written in my notes is Dame Sarr being this guy is crazy scary for college basketball, because when he, like, not even just, I mean, he put up 16 points, he put up 8 rebounds, like, statistically it was great, but like, he's flying around the floor. He's a phenomenal defensive player. He's making the right play with the basketball. He's not taking bad shots. I mean, he's 3 of 6 from 3 in this game. Like, he's getting to the line. Like, when he can make this kind of impact, because this is not the player that he was early in the year. We saw glimpses of this player at times, but for him to be able to deliver like this, if he can do this night in and night out, I mean, like you said, that's terrifying for how good this team can really be coming into the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, definitely want him to continue to, play this comfortable. And Isaiah Evans has really turned a corner as of late. The shots are falling for him. And then, it helps when you've got the National Player of the Year on your team. That's a pretty good place to start when you're building your roster.
And I remember the ESPN broadcast, they gave Dame Sarr the player of the game and they highlighted him and showed it. And I'm like, that doesn't really matter, but it's hilarious of like, yeah, Boozer had 26 and 9 on 8 of 10 shooting. Like that, he was the player of the game.
Forget about it. Yeah.
He was the best player on the floor, and it was not remotely close. And yet, we can't give it to every game.
ACC Coach of the Year, like what, twice or 3 times or something like that. Like,
it hasn't happened since 2000.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But hot take about Coach K, by the way. I think John Shire is already better than Coach K.
Ooh.
In what
wow.
Wait, as a recruiter, as an X's and O'ser, as a what, like in what regard?
Overall, what are we saying here?
So this is a take that JJ is going to hate, but I really mean it. Like, this is not inflammatory. Like, I truly mean this. Duke didn't win a regular season ACC for like 15 years. They won 2 titles in there, but Coach K was lauded as like, oh my God, he's still the best. He wasn't winning their own conference. Like, that's the real test of how good of a coach you are to me in terms of year in, year out. They were losing to Virginia and they were losing to North Carolina, and Duke was getting the best recruits in the country. So by my logic of you're getting the best recruits, and yes, of course, they're getting freshmen, they were losing and underperforming relative to their expectation year in and year out. So him not winning a coach of the year was proper. Like, there's no way he should have been voted over Tony Bennett did any of those years that Tony Bennett exceeded.
Right, but how much of that is just the fact that the ACC is worse now? Like, Virginia is maybe a bad example because they're good now, but they're not winning national championship good. Like, Louisville took a step back. Like,
I agree with that. I think the reason about Shire being better is I think he's a far better X's and O's coach.
Mm-hmm.
I think Shire's the best offensive coordinator, if you will, in the country. I think he draws all the best stuff. He sees what happens. They highlighted against Michigan. Michigan was switching, and he said, okay, if they're going to do this, we're going to punish them and throw a high-low. Like, I think he's the best in-game offensive adjuster in the entire country. But I also think that Coach K, I think there's a certain point in life where someone stagnates. And I think Coach K lost creativity, and Shire's at the cutting edge. I really believe Shire's a better coach than Coach K ever was. Coach K's legacy, obviously, better. And I know that's going to bother people, but I sincerely believe this.
I like that Leaf is deciding he can decide when his comments are inflammatory or not, right? Like, I didn't know I was allowed to do that with things I said. I could just open with that all the time and be a lot safer, frankly.
Well, here's the boat I'm in. I love them both. They're both Duke guys at the end of it. I don't feel like I need to necessarily pick.
I'm not saying he's
Coach K.
terrible. I just think Shire's really great.
No, you heard it here first. Mike Krzyzewski, terrible basketball coach.
Well, I do think there's something to be said about what I think Redick is an underrated guy for some of the stuff he does in the league too, because there's just like the train wreck that is the Lakers, but like these Duke guys do all seem to like know a lot about X's and O's, and while that was never like the calling card of Krzyzewski necessarily, was a lot of other cultural builds and this, that, and the other thing. Like,
thank you, Parker. Maybe they did learn a little basketball.
Well, they picked it up somewhere, and Shire specifically has a very limited career outside of.
Maybe Coach K did go and lead Team USA to 3 gold medals.
Well, I would point out I don't think Reddit learned it from Doc Rivers or anything like that. Is all I'm saying.
Well, we were talking about some of the better offensive coaches and offensive teams, and now we're going to look to our second and final Big Monday game. Was not a offensive game in any capacity. Incredible defense from Arizona, a 73-57 win over a sputtering Iowa State team we have seen these last couple of weeks. Arizona, they're healthy now. They get Koa Pete back. Doesn't have a super impactful game offensively. Leaf, also, you mentioned Dwayne Aristote earlier as being a guy that was lauded as a potential first-round pick. I loved what we saw from him in this game off the bench. I mean, he had 8 points, but he was 2 of 3 from 3, knocked down his outside shots. Like, just a really talented player. And what Arizona was able to do defensively. I mean, some of it was Iowa State, but like this, they shot under 30% from the field. They had more turnovers than assists. Like, they absolutely stymied them in this game, and just proves that, again, Tommy Lloyd, who was a coach that was credited mostly for his offense when he took that job, sure looks like he knows what he's doing on the other end of the floor as well.
That's a perfect transition, and my fans definitely have heard this statistic before, but Tommy Lloyd in 5 years has been top 10 every year offensively, so that's a given. He's really great at that, but their identity is defense. I've said this all year long that I think Mo Krivas should be the defensive player of the year also, but I think the interesting part about this is you said Koa Pete didn't have a big impact offensively, and you're right, but defensively you could make the argument like he had the best defensive performance of an individual all season long. Like Joshua Jefferson's a first-team All-American. He went 2 of 17 with 2 assists.
Koa Pete had more blocks than Iowa State did.
And Koa Pete doesn't block shots. Like, that's not his role for Arizona. He just had individual, not help side, individual, absolute stifling of Joshua Jefferson, who, in my opinion, with JT Toppin hurt, would have been my pick for the Big 12 Player of the Year. And then the guy who makes Iowa State run is Milan Momcilovic. Well, what did he do? If Jefferson scores 2 field goals, it must mean Momcilovic gets a lot of shots. Nope, 5 points. So Arizona just can take away anyone they want at any time. And then offensively, it wasn't pretty, but Iowa State was trapping, and the game's tenor was on Arizona's their tempo. Like, they could play defense the whole time and control it. And then they still, even though they had more turnovers, they won the fast break points 13-0. Like, so somehow the defense turns into offense. And like, if you were to look at Arizona and talk about what they are, and Duke has a similar claim, like Duke is a couple possessions away from being undefeated. Arizona, when healthy, is undefeated. And like,
what were some of those possessions, Leaf? Just out of curiosity, I just can't remember any of them.
A little hammer play, throw the ball to the corner, and a guy named Seth Trimble drained it.
I'm sorry, JJ, I can't help it.
I sympathize with you, JJ. Texas Tech was a thorn in the side here, so I'll go back to JJ's side on this one. But the point being is health.
I just got to get Duke. Look, Duke's gonna slaughter us probably on Saturday, so I got to get it while I still can. Okay.
Fair enough. But Texas Tech beat Arizona with Koa Pete not playing the second half. In the Kansas game, Koa Pete couldn't cross half court. So if you look at the full Arizona team, their defense keeps them in any game, and their offense, if they shoot at all, they blow you out. Like, everyone talks about a prerequisite of if they can make a shot, then therefore they can win. No, it's if they can make a shot, they'll blow you out. Yeah. And so I think that the biggest thing is when they are whole, they have relentless waves of Tobe Awaka gets 15 rebounds in this game, which is more than the games he played 30 minutes rather than 20, because now he can be like thunder to Koa Pete's lightning, just like a 1-2 combination. And he's loosened up to be so powerful in these roles. And I think Arizona they'll win the rebounds against anyone. Like, Florida's the best rebounding team in the country, Arizona +2. Against Houston, Arizona actually lost the rebounding battle for the first time. but Houston shot so poorly in that game. And they almost lost the rebounding battle against Iowa State. But that's because Iowa State shot 29%, that they got 1 billion offensive rebounds. So I think they just have the highest floor in the country, that it's really, really hard to stay with Arizona. If they play it all well offensively, which, mind you, they're a top 10 offense, that they should win the game. Like that's kind of my synopsis of this team.
Okay, so here we go then. We've got the first 3 years of the Big 12 with these new teams. None of the none of the original Big 12ers win. We've got Parker's Houston team winning the first 2 regular seasons, Arizona getting it this year. Everybody wants to know, and we've had several people ask in the chat. Andy said these are the top 2 teams. I would agree. I think Michigan is a step down. The LJ Kaysen thing, it doesn't debilitate things. It does hurt. I just don't trust the Michigan backcourt for 6 games. I do agree. I think Arizona and Duke are 1 and 2 in some order. Give me that for 7 games. So here's the question I want to ask. 7-game series, assuming these, everybody in agreement, these are the best 2. Anybody want to push back on that?
Nope.
Parker? I think Michigan gets a claim. I don't think it's
absolutely
obvious.
I mean, I have it'd be hard for me to make a claim that didn't sound a little biased if I started throwing stuff out there. But we'll go with it for the thought experiment. I want to hear that part.
All right, go with the thought experiment. Thank you. I appreciate you allowing me that. 7-game series, Duke, Arizona, the 2 teams that just blitzed it on Monday night to win their regular season conference championships outright. Who wins a 7-game series?
I like my guys. I think that they're really turned a corner. I think obviously what Duke's been doing defensively and offensively. So much for analysis from me here, guys. Sorry. I love the way they've been playing as of late and offensively. I think Cam Boozer, the Boozer twins just win. And we're finally accepting that their whole life they've just been winners and figuring out ways here.
I've accepted it all along.
From an X's and O standpoint, I don't mind that matchup at all for Arizona because, Cam Boozer's great. But Arizona's as well equipped as anyone to slow him down. And all you need is to slow him down at all. He's still going to get his. He's great. But I don't think the rest of Duke's guys terrify me. Dame Sarr is the X factor. To me, he's the second best basketball player on that team. And I want to preface that by saying basketball player because his role is not as important as other guys on the team. But if Dame Sarr is hitting threes, that changes things. But really, if you've looked at the games where Duke's been vulnerable, they've won many of them, but against Michigan State, against Florida, and some of those games that they have won, if Isaiah Evans is off, Duke you can play with. I think there's abilities to play with them. They're getting better because they're shooting better. Duke doesn't terrify me in the backcourt. And if you were to go position by position, I think you'd give an edge to Arizona in more positions, which is crazy to say about Duke because they've always been the most talented team.
Yeah, I think Don was a really big X factor.
But I mean, and the
so much attention in the front court.
Arizona beat Karchenkov. They'd be like the same idea.
Leaf took it. I was going to try and act like a conscientious observer here, but we obviously Arizona and Houston have some sort of connections to the Big 12, and they played and all that. That Karchenkov guy. I mean, if you're going to have Pete covering Boozer, that's a ton of fun or whatever. That Karchenkov guy, he's a difference maker at the next level, and I think Leaf talked about it at a Big 12 squad a long time ago, and so I don't mean to give him all of the credit. I'm sure there are other people that had him as a higher end draft pick, I think, than he came into.
There really weren't though. I was on Arizona Twitter, and everyone's like, "Oh, Aristode's the draft pick." And if you were to look at the next guy,
that Karchenkov guy,
the projected starter was Anthony Del Orso by everyone, and then the projected draft pick was Aristode, and they played St. Mary's in the preseason
over Koa Pete.
No, at the other spot
of those 2 wings.
Oh! I was like, what are we talking about?
No. The deal to me though is because he is, you've got Burries, you've got Bradley, you've got Pete. You mentioned Mo Cruz inside, having the 5th starter be that same level. I think because the JJ obviously will back Duke on this. Karchenkov's so much bigger, I think, than he's broad, he's strong, he's long, he's 6'6". He's just a real difference maker in what they do defensively, because I think it leads to a lot of size on the rebounding front and size in cutting off passing lanes, and he's a real key piece to a lot of things.
Here's the thing for me: Cam Boozer's the best player,
sure,
on the floor in that game. Jaden Bradley, I feel like, is the X factor as the point guard, as the veteran, decisive guy that can do it on both. I just feel like I'm not saying that like tips the scale in favor of Arizona. I just think he would be massively important in that series.
Mm-hmm. That's what I was going to say too. I was going to say Bradley's the best guard, and again, I mean Evans is fantastic, but Evans is not the ball handler for them. Yeah. I'm really split. Like honestly, I could kind of see either way. I think veteran guards is typically the way that I lead when I'm feeling split on something, and obviously Arizona has that with Bradley, but also with Del Orso, and I think that maybe gives them a little bit of an edge. But I also like best player, and Boozer is definitely the best player out of this group. I think this would be an incredible 7-game series, and I realize I am playing both sides like Mac from Always Sunny right now instead of actually giving an answer. But I think it would be fantastic.
2001 national championship game. These two teams,
right?
25 years.
You guys don't have a Shane Battier walking through that door.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Don't have a Jay Williams either.
I was 10 months old for that one. So that
we do have Carlos Boozer's children.
That's true. That counts.
The one actual point I'd make about this game is that I actually disagree about Bradley being the best player in Arizona. I think Braden Burry is the best player in Arizona.
I didn't say best player. I'm just talking about as the guard. I think he probably is the best backcourt player for either team that helps steady things. I'm not saying he's Arizona's best player at all.
But when Burry's be in the backcourt, like you're helping my point. I agree. I think their backcourt tandem's far better than Foster. Like JJ knows that's a dig. I just don't like Foster at all. But I really mean that. I think they're significantly better than Foster and Boozer and Foster and Evans.
I look at these rosters. I see one team has Carlos Boozer's kids. The other team has LeBron James' son. You know,
that's true. Red shirt.
Can we get
shout out Bryce?
Braun? I want peak Braun and peak Carlos on these rosters. That's what we need.
Okay, but how about 2026 LeBron and 2026 Boozer? Like that's a little bit crazy.
They can.
I'm not liking the Duke chances. Yeah.
Oh man.
Well, that's probably a good enough spot to call. We're at about an hour here on the squad show, but
I got a piece of trivia. No, hold on.
Yep.
We brought up 1999. Both of these Miami teams were ranked once upon a time. Remember that conversation?
Yes.
Okay. Rabbit hole digging. I was okay. Zerbiak, biggest name, right? 10 years in the league. That is not the most NBA years of a player on either of those two teams.
I'm trying to think of
who
from
Miami. One of those two Miami teams played longer in the NBA than Wally Zerbiak.
It's got to be Florida Miami. Yes.
Not Udonis. Good guess though. John Salmons played 13 years. Was a freshman, getting 14 points per game on that Miami Florida team. I was like, holy! I didn't even really put together that he went to Miami, let alone that he was there in 1999. But crazy.
Wasn't Haslam a Gator?
No, I was trying to think of long tenured guys from that era. As I said, I was like, he does a podcast with Mike Miller. That doesn't work.
Well, and he very much reps Miami because of the Heat stuff, and he's originally from Miami too, right?
When he said long tenured, I was really banking on that era.
Yeah, 13 years for Salmons, 10 years for Zerbiak.
I will tell all of you right now, if you ever want to interject in, as long as you're mentioning John Salmons or Wally Zerbiak, like we're in good shape there. Those are elite references to throw out on a squad show episode. We love to see
My
it.
last thought to give people is Miami, Florida, Miami of Ohio. Neither one of these schools actually in a town called Miami. You got Coral Gables.
Where's Miami, Ohio?
I had to go look. Something called Oxford, Ohio.
Oh, yeah. That's where Ole Miss is.
Yeah.
What a mess. What a mess.
Don't forget your seed aggregator. I'm here for all your seed aggregation needs, folks.
We are taking sunflower seed sponsorships.
If anybody has them, let us know. Let us know.
Reach out.
David's, where you at?
Where you at, David? All right, folks, that's going to wrap it up for us today. This was a lot of fun. We're going to have more of these. I don't know when we're going to have our next one because we're not going to have Big Monday next week, and I will be at the WCC tournament at this time next week. But we will have more squad shows as we get into Selection Sunday and conference tournaments, all of that coming up here very soon. But folks, as always, we want to say apologies to the Lawyer family. Let's go Wild Popes. Cheers to the McBruins. And until next time, peace out.